Part 1. The Beginning. You felt it this morning. A tickle, a brief, inexplicable itch somewhere on your body. Your ear, perhaps, the back of your neck. That specific spot on your left shoulder blade that you can never quite reach. You scratched it. You moved on. You did not think about it again. You should have thought about it again. That itch was not random. That itch has never been random. That itch is your government tracker syncing with the central database, and you are currently running version 4.7, and the changelog has not been made public, and there is nothing you can do about it because the tracker has been inside you since the first time you took public transport and breathed in. This is the story of how that happened. It starts, as most things do, with a man who dropped something on the floor. Part 2. John. In 1987, a government research scientist named John was working late in a laboratory at a facility that does not appear on any map, in a building that does not appear on any planning register, on a project that does not appear in any budget document, despite consuming approximately $340 million of public funding over 11 years. John was the lead researcher on the project. John was tired. John had been working for 14 hours. John was carrying 2 petri dishes containing separate microorganisms that had been in development for 6 years each. The microorganisms were complex. The names of the microorganisms were longer than most sentences. The names of the microorganisms have never been published in any document accessible to the public, and are referred to in internal communications only as Organism A and Organism B, which tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the people naming them were taking their jobs at that point in the evening. John tripped. John dropped both petri dishes. John looked at the floor. John looked at his clipboard. John made a decision that would alter the course of human history. John scooped both organisms off the floor with his clipboard and placed them in the same jar. John went home. John did not document this. John went to bed. John slept very well, considering. The following morning, a junior researcher opened the jar, noted that the 2 organisms had merged overnight into something that had not existed before and did not appear in any taxonomy of known life, and sent an email to John asking if this was intentional. John replied, "Yes." John does not know why he replied yes. John maintains to this day that he meant to reply no. The project continued. Before his career in government research, John had worked at Toys R Us as Jeffrey the Giraffe. This is not relevant. John wanted you to know anyway. Part 3. The Organism. The merged organism, referred to in all subsequent documentation as Organism C, despite there never having been an Organism C before, had properties that neither Organism A nor Organism B possessed individually. It was airborne. It was stable at room temperature. It was attracted to warm enclosed spaces with poor ventilation and high human density. It entered the human body through the ear canal. Once inside, it attached to the inner ear and established what researchers described in their notes as a connection. A word they used because the word they actually wanted to use was not a scientific term and would not have survived peer review, and also would have raised questions they were not prepared to answer. The connection, once established, allowed the organism to transmit data. Specifically, it transmitted the following: location, daily routine, dietary preferences, purchasing behavior, and activities conducted in private that the subject would prefer remained private. The government did not design Organism C to do this. Organism C just did it. John was informed. John said, "Oh." John said nothing else for several minutes. John then asked if anyone wanted a coffee. Nobody wanted a coffee. John made one anyway. Part 4. Why the government wants to track you. In 1986, 1 year before John dropped the petri dishes, a government employee named Colin deleted a spreadsheet. Not the same Colin who maintains the 5G frequency schedule in a converted barn in Wiltshire. A different Colin. There are now 2 Colins in this universe, and nobody is comfortable with this, but here we are. This Colin worked in a government data management department in a building in Whitehall that has since been converted into luxury flats. Colin was performing routine file maintenance on a Tuesday afternoon when he accidentally deleted a spreadsheet containing the personal details of every citizen in the country. Not hacked. Not stolen. Deleted. By Colin, who thought it was a duplicate. It was not a duplicate. Colin submitted an incident report. The incident report was reviewed by a committee. The committee met for 3 hours. The committee reached a conclusion that has never been made public, but that can be inferred from subsequent events. The conclusion was, we need to get that information back. The tracking program was launched the following year. They have been rebuilding the spreadsheet since 1987. They are currently 34% complete. At the current rate of data collection, the spreadsheet will be complete by 2041. Colin retired in 1994. Colin grows tomatoes. Colin does not discuss the spreadsheet. Colin does not discuss Tuesdays. Part 5. Barry. The first human test subject was a man named Barry Manalo. Not the singer. Barry was 34 years old, lived in Coventry, worked in logistics, and had no idea he was the first human test subject for a government biological surveillance program because Barry had simply gone to his GP with an ear infection. The eardrops Barry was prescribed contained Organism C. Barry did not know this. Barry's GP did not know this. Barry's GP had received the eardrops in a standard pharmaceutical delivery that contained no unusual documentation except a small sticker on the box that read, "Priority Distribution." Barry's GP had not noticed the sticker. Barry's GP had seen many stickers. Barry used the eardrops for 7 days as instructed. By day 3, Organism C had established its connection. By day 7, the government knew the following things about Barry Manalo. Barry's favorite bread was white, not brown, not sourdough, not the seeded batch loaf his wife preferred. White. Standard white sliced bread from a major supermarket that Barry purchased every Thursday without variation or apparent reflection. This information was logged, filed, and stored in the partially rebuilt spreadsheet under the category Dietary Preferences. What Barry did in his private time has been logged, filed, and stored under a category that has been redacted from all documents released under Freedom of Information requests. The redaction is extensive. Hopefully someone clears Barry's history. Barry was unaware of all of this. Barry's ear infection cleared up. Barry went back to work. Barry bought white bread on Thursday. Part 6. Public Transport. Organism C spreads through air in warm enclosed spaces with poor ventilation and high human density. This is why buses and trains are always packed. Not because of bad planning, not because of underfunding, not because the 847 to Leeds has been running 4 minutes late every single day since 2009 due to what the operator describes as ongoing operational challenges. The buses and trains are packed because packed buses and trains are optimal dispersal environments for Organism C. Every delayed train is a longer dispersal window. Every packed bus is a higher infection rate. Every replacement bus service is an opportunity. The government does not run the buses. The government does not need to run the buses. The buses are doing exactly what the government needs them to do without any intervention whatsoever. This is considered one of the more elegant aspects of the program by the people who know about it. There are 14 people who know about it. 12 of them take the bus. They wear earbuds. This is not a coincidence. Part 7. The AirPod Problem. In 2016, Apple released the first-generation AirPods. The government was not consulted. The government was not pleased. AirPods create a physical barrier between the ear canal and the surrounding air. A barrier sufficient, according to internal testing conducted at a facility in Nevada, to reduce Organism C transmission rates by 73%. 73%. The government has been trying to address the AirPod problem since 2016. 3 separate government initiatives have been launched with the stated purpose of investigating the health impacts of wireless earbuds. All 3 have concluded that more research is needed. More research is always needed. The research is ongoing. The research will always be ongoing. In 2019, a senior government official described AirPods in a private meeting as the single greatest threat to data collection infrastructure since Colin deleted the spreadsheet. The minutes of that meeting were released under a Freedom of Information request in 2022. The AirPod section was redacted. The Colin section was also redacted. There are a lot of redacted sections. Barry's section is the most extensively redacted. Hopefully someone clears Barry's history. Part 8. Gary. Gary from Yorkshire identified Organism C in 2016. Gary did not identify it through research or investigation or professional expertise, although Gary has all 3. Gary identified it because Gary felt the itch one morning, scratched it, and then sat very still for a long time thinking about what had just happened. Gary posted about it on Facebook that evening. The post received 4 likes before it was removed. Gary was not surprised. Gary began wearing earbuds continuously from 2016 onwards. Not AirPods specifically. Gary does not trust the AirPod microphone. Gary uses a specific model of wired earbuds that Gary sourced from a supplier Gary has not disclosed and that Gary describes only as effective. Gary has not felt the itch since 2016. Gary considers this confirmation. Gary posted about this on Facebook in 2018. The post received 6 likes. It was not removed. Gary found this more unsettling than removal would have been. Gary checked his ears. Gary's ears were fine. Gary made a note. Gary updated the board. Gary added 3 items. Gary stepped back. Gary looked at the board for a long time. Gary said quietly to nobody in particular, "I've been telling people this for years." Nobody was in the room. It didn't matter. Gary said it anyway. Part 9. The Epilogue. Barry Manalo is still in Coventry. Not the singer. Barry still buys white bread on Thursdays. Barry's ear infection has not returned. Barry does not wear earbuds. Barry felt the itch this morning. Barry scratched it. Barry moved on. Barry did not think about it again. The spreadsheet has been updated. Colin's deletion moves 1 step closer to being corrected. In a converted barn in Wiltshire, another Colin updates the 5G frequency spreadsheet. Column G has not been changed. Column G will not be changed. The lampposts are receiving the data. The buses are running late. The trains are packed. John is retired. John does not discuss the clipboard. John does not discuss the jar. John sometimes thinks about Jeffrey the Giraffe. This is not relevant. John wanted you to know anyway. You are on version 4.7. The itch you felt this morning was real. You scratched it. That was the right thing to do. There was nothing else you could have done. The pigeon was on the lamppost outside Barry Manalo's house at 0317. Not the singer. The lamppost received the data. The pigeon watched. The pigeon always watches. His eyes were not visible. They were redacted.